Chase, yeah.
Huh?
Can you hear us, Chase?
Yep, all good now.
Awesome. All right.
Hi guys.
You're joining in Spanish time, huh? As I expected.
Yeah, I've become too accustomed to your ways, Nacho.
All right, so let me put here numbers. We'll start in 5 minutes. We're not on, since this is virtual, but I'm in the Canary Islands, we'll take the Canary Islands time instead of German time. Natalia, renombrar. You guys can talk, huh? You don't have to be quiet.
Sure.
I'm just putting numbers here to Concepción, Marcus, Andrea. Chris, are you in Berlin or still Madrid? Where the hell are you?
I'm in Berlin. We're in Berlin, Linda and me. We moved back at the beginning of February, so we've been here throughout the last few months.
All right.
That through choice, Chris, or was it because of this COVID situation?
No, we actually moved before it. It was a bit by, just circumstances in February, but it's been interesting to be here throughout COVID, and having left Madrid, it was kind of hard to see things be pretty difficult there for a lot of people too. So it's been a little smoother here.
Perfect.
You're the only
Artie,
one physical in Berlin.
how's it going?
Working hard. Past couple days got off now.
Where are you? In Canada or where are you now?
Still in Toronto.
Oh, Toronto. All right.
Everyone's just staying there where he was caught before the lockdown. So you guys are staying willingly there, or because there are no flights to go back, or in Toronto, for example?
No, I live in Toronto.
You live in Toronto, all right.
I have a couple of flights booked for Las Palmas, but that's for next winter. Hopefully.
Oh, okay. I think for the next winter you should be fine.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
So.
You know, you never know. You never know. Yeah.
All right. Hey, Nicholas, good to see you back.
Thank you. Good to see you again.
All right. Oh, Lindsay joined. Awesome. Very good. Hi, Lindsay.
Hello, how's it going?
Very good. Todo bien. All right, 1 minute to go, and we'll get started.
Hello. I was just eating, but I'm wondering. Hello. Is anybody able to walk around outside freely now? Where's the best place for lockdown?
I love my place.
Gran Canaria.
Gran Canaria?
The bars and restaurants are open.
Well, we are able to walk around now. We used to have in Dubai, in the UAE, a very strict lockdown. Okay, so we were supposed to apply for an online permit to be able to go to the supermarket, and you had to stay at the supermarket you want to go, and you get the maximum of 2 hours, and you only could apply for that once every 3 days. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love Germany. It was very nice here. Not that lockdown. No stress here.
Yeah, my brother, he's been sent to Germany for work. We're all really jealous because we're trapped in the UK. It's not a place of the greatest weather to be in lockdown. So everyone's just hibernating here.
If you're locked down, it doesn't really matter. I guess, but yeah, you're right.
Early summer, we have 20-70 degrees here.
That's nice.
Oh, yeah.
Lovely.
Southwest Germany, not in the northern, but in southwest.
And also here in Berlin, it felt like over April, we had probably the nicest April in years.
Yes, yeah, 28 degrees, and then it drops to 4 degrees on Monday, and Tuesday up to 27. So.
Yeah.
Well, as I was telling some of you guys before, now, I mean, in the Canary Islands, we have pretty mild weather during the whole year. So before, we used to receive all the tourism in the winter because it was too cold in Europe. But now we're going to receive it also in the summer because it's going to be too hot in Europe. So we're going to be booked up all year round.
Good
all
for
right,
you.
let's get started, guys. Welcome, everyone. I'm really happy to see a lot of faces that I recognize. Some of them who have been involved in some of the events here. As I was telling the panelists who were here before, Marcus Vermus is the guy responsible for this initiative, where he hosted the first remote work after work in Munich already over a year ago. I see here also Ross and Pilar, Ross Chapman and Pilar. Ross was the host in London. Charles is joining in us again. He hosted us last week in Paris. So I'm really excited that this community is slowly growing and that, you know, more of us are enjoying these initiatives. Nadine has been super successful. We're over, you know, expecting over 50 people today. Everybody wants to hear her talk and the rest of the panelists. So yeah, I'm really excited about this conversation getting started. Just so all of you know who are not familiar with these events, are meetups that used to happen presentially until this little crisis happened 8 weeks ago. We were supposed to host an event in Israel and you know, couldn't happen presentially. So when we went virtual, or event that was gonna happen in Paris at Klaxoon stores had to go virtual, and this event in Berlin is also going virtual. The reason why we like to do presential events, even though we are talking about remote work, is that in the different cities, a lot of remote workers don't get the chance to meet because they work at home. As you know, most of you guys don't even, you know, go to co-working spaces. So you are just, you know, doing your stuff at home, and maybe your neighbor next door is also a remote worker and you don't even know. So the idea behind this was to gather the different communities in different cities worldwide to advocate for this movement. It seems like, you know, after the last 8 weeks, now we don't have to advocate for remote work, but because, you know, everybody is remote working by law in some cases. So these are exciting times. I'm really excited to see what's going to come. I'm really excited to hear from you guys about what's the situation in Germany. The reason why we also like to sort of like focus the topics on each city is to see what's happening in each country, because there are cultural differences. There are countries that go at a different speed. There are different problematics in each country, and I think that we can learn a lot from what each country, each section, each government is doing around remote work, in order to implement it in other places. So I'm not going to talk more. I'm going to pass the ball to Nadine, who's going to, you know, introduce some of the guys, and yeah, let's get the conversation going. Please participate. Please ask questions. We have a group of panelists, but we want everyone to participate. So if you feel that you want to jump in, you know, just text us, or just feel free to ask to be able to jump in the conversation. And I just hope that you enjoy the event. And that's it. Nadine, please.
Yeah, hi everyone. Great to have you here this evening, and welcome to Remote AfterWorks Berlin Virtual Edition. I try my best with the green screen and have the Brandenburger Tor behind me. So I'm not physically in Berlin, I'm south of Frankfurt, but I thought it was a nice idea to have the Brandenburger Tor behind me. And just some words in German. I don't know, we are a very international group here, but I don't know if there's somebody here from German. Erstmal Hallo, willkommen zu Remote AfterWorks Berlin. Falls ihr eure Fragen nicht auf Englisch stellen wollt, sondern auf Deutsch, das ist kein Problem. Wir werden auch übersetzen, an den jeweiligen, also ins Panel die Frage übersetzen. Und wenn es gewünscht ist, auch die Frage wieder ins Panel zurück auf Deutsch. Also wer jetzt sagt, ich bin jetzt nicht so jetzt vertraut, Englisch zu sprechen, das ist kein Problem. Wir werden auch auf Deutsch dann übersetzen und ins Englische und von Englisch noch ins Deutsche übersetzen. I just said that if you would like to speak German, that's no problem. We will translate the question and also translate the answer back in English. So yeah, let's start with the first panel. We have two panels tonight. So the first panel is more regarding remote work in Germany and what's the situation here in Germany, and especially during Corona, what changed during Corona, what will change after Corona. And in the first panel, there will be Markus, Osman, Pirita, Manuel. Is Manuel here now?
I think so. Maybe it's him. No, it's not. It's Aman Shu. I'm trying to let him in. I'll let him in.
Okay. I see Daniel is here. Daniel, would you like to take over for Manuel? I don't know, just jump in. And,
yes, we can jump in, yes.
Okay, great. And yeah, then we start with the first panel. And if you have any question, just raise your hand and we will try to answer all your questions in this panel. And yeah, let's start. Maybe Markus as the initiator.
Do you guys think we should like quickly introduce ourselves, the panelists, at the beginning, or do you prefer that we go like whenever speaks? Let's do it in the beginning so we know who is, like.
Or who would take over the question can just make a short introduction. That would be better for the energy.
All right.
So Markus, maybe you are great. You are here. You have a great overview about remote work, not only in Germany but also in the whole world. So maybe, what do you think about remote work in Germany? What's the percentage of remote work in Germany, and what changed now? What's your opinion about this?
Yeah, that's a good question. Just so everyone know, I do work at Buffer. I'm an engineering manager. We're globally distributed. We don't have an office. So for us, it's basically business as usual, which is it not, because Corona kind of made us also less productive. Yeah, I don't have numbers. Like, as you already said, like I do a lot in the remote work field, but Germany is just where I live and I do have connections here. But I think that currently there's a lot of people working remotely, even my dad, which is kind of very awkward because for him, home office meant not really working. So I think a lot of people are working remotely right now. And there's even, we'll probably talk about this in the questions, even the talks of like a law being introduced. So I think there will be changes afterwards, but I do think a lot of people will have to go back to the office for various reasons. Because I think companies in Germany do still want the people in the office. I just chatted to some friends last week where their companies, which are quite big companies in Germany, they're already, enabling people to go back to the office, of course, with like social distancing and everything. But yeah, so I think before it was probably quite low. Right now it's very high. And after this whole situation is over, I think we'll kind of be in like a medium state. So I don't have any numbers. So maybe someone else on the panel does have numbers, but yeah, I don't.
Okay. Rita, thank you for being here. What's your experience about remote work in Germany? You have a lot of experience about remote work in a big company. Maybe you can just introduce yourself with your experience, but you also work with startups and mid-sized companies here in Germany. So maybe you have, what's your opinion, point of view about this?
Thank you, Nadine, and thanks for inviting me, because this is actually a topic that is very close to my heart. So currently I have a small consultancy company called Klare GmbH, and I'm helping mainly middle-sized, bigger companies to build new digital innovations and bringing the old innovations into digital ecosystems. And that is something it's of course when the pandemic came, because everything happened earlier in offices, face-to-face meetings. There was a very little remote work. It has been a big change because we have been able to start working remotely. So we are building innovations remotely, and my customers are actually surprised themselves that it works. Because many of these customers are traditional industrial companies, not used to actually a remote work. But coming back a little bit to the earlier question, I have some numbers, and I can't really remember where I saw it, but there was a newspaper article recently stating that in Germany, the remote workers, full-time remote or sometimes a few days a week remote workers are 10%. And I guess most of these 10% are still the ones who are actually these hybrid models. So they go into the office some days and work mainly at home. And there was an interesting research what the Technical University in Köln did last month. They surveyed 900 employees, different kind of employees in Germany about the remote work now after the pandemic started, in the companies who are not actually used to do remote work. And they were surprised, 74% said it actually works very well, extremely well. And what we see now, and I come from the different perspectives. So I have been working remotely, having remote teams for over 20 years. First in the academia, then in the big company, then actually in startups, and now via the own company, which is fully remote. There is a big change. So earlier it used to be the younger people. So, and that's what I hear still from the companies in Germany. They are stating, okay, these are the younger people who want to travel around the world and they want to work during their time when they are traveling remotely. There is a huge demographic change. So what we see now is it's actually not only the younger people, it's the seniors, and they are seeing different value. They don't necessarily want to travel and work. They actually don't want to travel at all anymore. They want to stay at home. They have their families, they have their free time, and they see different value from remote work. And they see also the benefits of actually having the tools. And of course, some experiences come from the bigger companies. They have very broad selection of tools. So everything will be directly documented. Everything is available for everyone. Communication is faster, and the decisions are made more based on data and facts. And those are the arguments which I find very interesting, because those are hard to beat for the traditional companies who still want to say, maybe after the pandemic, we all go back to the office. And I think that's going to change.
Okay.
It's surprising, isn't it, that we have been trying to convince people for such a long time that it actually can work, and them all were saying like, oh no, it wouldn't work for my company. Oh no, not for my people. And now when they see that, like it's not that bad. It's actually quite nice, right? So I think that when we have the possibility, like to go back to the office and not go to the office, that it settles down in the middle and we take the best of both worlds. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Farita. Osman, you also have a very interesting background from working at Deloitte and helping startups to go remotely, and you are a chapter leader of Startup Crew in Frankfurt. So you also have a great overview about the situation here in Germany. What's your opinion? What's going on here in Germany? Percentage changing during Corona? Will it change after Corona?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me here. Yeah, I'm Osman. I'm a lawyer working with Deloitte here, and as Nadine mentioned, I also lead the chapter here, the Startup Grind chapter, since 2015. So I have a good insight, I think, in both established traditional corporates, but also like startups which were fully digital. So what has changed? For me, I think it was more a psychological change and a change of a mindset, because both at Deloitte and in my startup activities, I was working remotely, be it at the client's site or in a train or somewhere else, or talking via Skype to colleagues in different offices. So I think remote work was nothing new to me and also for the company. But what I realized is that all of a sudden the whole world is in this remote working stage. It feels different, although I think people are used to it, because you always had the possibility to have these physical meetings anytime, or client meetings in physical face-to-face. And what changed with Corona is that you don't have this possibility anymore. And I think this psychological let's say change, or this new awareness, this is a phenomenon for me and for all the corporations, I think, and startups to tackle with. And all these uncertainties, of course, we have now with the whole economy, the health system, etc. That there is a certain anxiety, I think, everywhere. And this is the difference, I think, to the pre-corona remote world, which I personally was also used to.
Okay, thanks. Before we go on, we just have a poll for people, or the experience from the people here at Remote AfterWorks. Do you currently work remotely? And I just want to show the results. It's okay, Nacho, or would like to show you the results? And I just show. Can you see the results now?
Yes.
Okay. We are very experienced here.
Well, the thing is, I hope it was not because of the question. I mean, I see that we are very experienced, but the question was whether you used to be working remotely for the weeks before the last 8 weeks, right? Because now it's obviously a no-brainer, but before that. But I think that's the way we also understood the question, right? And we are quite experienced here, so it's a good group.
Okay. This is great. We can push the level of the conversation a bit higher.
Okay. Okay, just rocket science stuff. Organic stuff. Okay, great.
Yeah, but you guys, it's also okay, like if you want to contribute something that would be worthwhile sharing with everyone, just go ahead. I mean, we are, in a meetup. Okay.
Yeah.
So just feel free to jump in whenever you have a good point or an interesting question or whatever.
Okay. Well, the next question would be for the panel. Well, a mix of your experience of established companies and startup companies. Do you think there are any other challenges, or say it's a difference between working in a startup and established company from your, what's maybe a difference in Deloitte and the startups you have in Startup Grind? Osman, is there, or what's your experience about established bigger companies?
I think, yes.
The culture aspect.
I think, yeah, the culture is totally different. And I think the level of independence is different. So even if you work remotely within a big consultancy company or traditional established companies, there is still this feeling of oversight and reporting times, reporting what you do. Maybe, yeah, to a lesser degree. In startups where you can choose wherever you work, and even if you turn on your camera in a Starbucks or somewhere else in a cafe, or even at a public space, people take it for granted, and this is nothing weird. I think, and this is this cultural difference, even if you are on video call, people expect in the background, I mean, these things like your Brandenburger Tor, which is also quite innovative and new, people now play all these funny games with these backgrounds. But before, I think this Zoom culture, you could see where people sitting, and usually they were sitting in a very sterile office area. I mean, talking for corporates. And startups, there was always this background noise, the music, some people were walking with their latte, and dogs and cats in the background, or kids jumping. So I think there was much more acceptance for that, tolerance and respect for, let's say, also this bringing your own lifestyle and bringing your own leisure time also into your work. And this is in the startup field seen as, being creative, being open, being agile, and a positive vibe to what you do. Corporates still struggle with these kind of things. You cannot just appear in a client meeting, having cats and dogs, running in the room, or the barista jumping with a latte in the background. So will this change? Probably not. Even if you have like these remote work tools, the way you use them is different. There is, I think, an unwritten some social code, a code of conduct and behavior, like in social setting, and you can feel it. You can feel that in this physical working field, between the cultural differences between startups and corporates. But even if you do it remotely, I think it is more, let's say, rigid and more traditional, more sterile.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm always have this management consulting background, working before I have my own company, working with as management consulting, a bit management consultants with clients. And I think it was a lot of remote work, but it was because of the operations. Yet distributed operations, and we had to keep the performance high in these distributed operations. It's not like, oh, we would like to work from home or be more flexible. It was like being in that distributed settings, like clients and consultancies. And then what you can do to increase performance was always the question. And it was, but not just having, it was not a question, or having a work-life balance or having the kids at home. It was like performance in the workflows, and set up the digital collaboration properly. And also have to be, as you say, a conduct of behavior with your clients, and should be more professional. And but I think startups are more flexible, or it's a different culture, so you can have the kids around. It's more authentic, I think.
Just the size and the tools startups use, even if they are in an office before Corona, like they just have it easier if they have to just move 10 people to their homes and use the tools that they were already using. Big companies, they don't have any of that, and they have maybe 300 to 400 people they need to move.
Yeah, here in Frankfurt we have many big companies and the financial districts, and they're very focused on IT security. There's the main concern about IT security. And when the lockdown started, the ECB, the European Central Bank, started to test out remote work during Corona, but it tested out not with sending out the people to the home office. It tested the whole week only IT security, the whole week, 25 hours IT security. And then they make the decision how we can work remotely. Okay, it's a bank, so maybe special, but I see this with a lot of bigger companies here in Frankfurt. And they started with the IT security, and not with the question how we can increase performance, or ensure that our staff is healthy, and that, or it's not stressed in this whole new situation. They just focused on IT security, and
I feel that's a German thing though too. When you read articles about remote work in Germany, it's all about how can we make sure that the workspace is safe and that you all have the benefits that you can get in the office. So,
and you need a German cloud.
And that is even more to that. How does the how do you say, the insurance regulation, like if you break your arm while fall off the sofa at home? Is it a work incident or is it a private? So this all, like in Germany, it has to be regulated in your employment contract. So there's a lot of work for lawyers around you guys if you're in money.
And that's a big issue actually right now. So in Germany, we are talking about making a law for remote workers and allowing everybody to do remote work. But these are the things which are actually not to underestimate. So these are difficult questions. So insurance is one aspect where everything can stop. And that's a big worry. And I think it's not even stressed enough in the bigger discussions in politics. So I think, and I hope we are going to go another way around, and we are having the employees working together with the employers and insurance companies, innovating these new insurance structures, the security for the companies and for the employees first, and then they are drafting based on the new law, based on this information, because otherwise it's going to be too restrictive and too slow, and we are going to lose the benefits of going remote if we go the traditional way where we're drafting first a law and then we are going to change the situation.
Yes.
So I hope we have learned the lesson from the previous situations and do this time another way around.
Okay.
Britta, are you also a lawyer? Osman is lawyer, so Osman, there's some work for you, okay? And we count on you. Like if I have to go back to Germany someday, I count that that the regulation is done by then.
Okay, we have some more polls. I'm not sure you are ahead of the polls because we have too many people. I just lost the overview of the polls. Maybe we can show the results of this poll.
Can you see them? I'm sharing right now the last one for Twitter.
Okay, you shared. Yeah, Twitter just took step for remote forever. Will Google, Facebook follow? Most people say yes. Oh, it's differ. It's interesting. Yeah. Okay.
But
if
here
you guys
is hidden also one opportunity. So it's very interesting to see this actually are the biggest companies now who are saying, okay, we are going fully remote. But if you are looking at the Germany, and I love numbers, so if you're looking at the German industry and the Wirtschaft, the German word as complete, 99.6% of the companies are small and medium-sized companies. So they can actually do it. We already earlier noted, they can do it much faster. They can move their employees into home office, they can train their staff, they can change their leadership models, their culture, but they are not taking that step that fast as the bigger companies. And that's something which is very funny for me.
The thing is, I think that they don't have the access, or they don't put that much value on training this stuff, right? So if you have like a middle-sized company, it's often that the management thinks, well, the way we do it is just fine, and if we have to, like go on Corona, we just go. Whereas big companies, they have their leadership programs, and they have their, like hordes and armies and whole legions of all the kinds of consultants who help them. It's I think it's so mid-size also should really catch up on that.
Okay, we have a short amount of time for this panel, and not sure should say let's move to the second panel. And maybe a last question, not sure, short question. Okay. Another question, Manuel, if you are here, just jump into the discussion. I don't know if you are here, or Daniel, because I haven't seen you yet, and I don't want to let you out. Just jump in the discussion. You're welcome. Yeah, could remote work help our economy regarding talent, attracting more talent, or now restart the economy after Corona?
That's a very good point, and I have a little kind of story to tell on this, and I was hoping this question to come up because this is a topic I have been talking to many companies recently, and they are saying, okay, we are definitely seeing the benefits. We are seeing the benefits for our company, firstly, saying, okay, we are going to keep the best local ones, and we are going to hire the best remote ones. And then it's like, okay, let's play the devil here and turn the coin around. What happens if you are going to lose your best ones for the remote work and only going to get the worst ones as a remote? And that's a tricky thing what the companies do need to think about now, because it's all about the culture. It's all about do we have an interesting work to do? Do we have an interesting technology? Do we have the right tools and processes? Is our compensation good? And this is one of the myths of what I have been pushing years to, saying remote workers are not the cheap workers as we used to think about them. They are actually the best one because they can choose. And if your company culture is not the right one, if the products are not the nice ones, if you're not paying well enough, they are actually quite quick to change the company and go somewhere else. And this has been something that, let's say, in some of the traditional bigger companies, industries like insurance industry, they have made people to think about, okay, we do need to really change. We have to actually push faster these cultural changes as we have been doing. So we have been talking about agile, free way of working and all these kind of things, but we're actually not doing anything concrete to change it. And I think, and I hope it's going to change now.
Okay.
Yeah, I think.
Or Marcus, yes.
Just one sentence. I think remote work is becoming now a benefit or a perk that companies have to offer, or people are going to ask them like, hey, can I work remotely? And if not, they just look to another company. Okay.
Osman, what's your point of view about economy and talents?
I'm also very optimistic and positive about that. Especially for the younger generation, it will be, and it is still, I think, also pre-corona, it was something companies could offer, and it was very attractive, saying no matter where you work, we support that. And this cultural change, I think, because the whole country almost is in remote work phase, will hopefully change it, and this will become a normal and acceptable thing, and not people begging for home office. But and as you know, probably there is also in Germany a legislation proposal which in autumn will give the right to almost anyone to ask for home office, either like on a full-time basis or a few days a week. And hopefully also this legislative reforms and changes will help people to work how they wish to work.
Okay. Nacho, you would like to jump in?
I had to jump in because this is a topic that touches my heart just too deep, not to interfere with the rest of the panelists. I mean, you guys have been talking mostly about the companies, right? About the benefit and, who's going to attract the best talent. Are they all going to go remote, etc.? But there's a topic that I'm totally in love with, which is the socioeconomic impact of remote work. And for me, when all those companies start really going remote, it's a total game changer for society as a whole. I mean, we are, society is still connected to when we started industrialism and people started moving to cities, which where like the jobs were located. And now this is over. So now a lot of regions that are underdeveloped are starting to play the game of attracting those remote workers, attracting those jobs that they don't have to generate the jobs. They just have to attract the workers. And that's a game changer, because if I can choose, I want to live right there, which is about 20 minutes away from where I'm right now, and enjoy, a lifestyle that maybe I wasn't able to choose because I wanted to have the job that I also wanted to have. So I had to choose either the job or the location. And that's a totally game changer for a lot of communities, a lot of cities worldwide that will have to play an important game to it.
I think we have a comment of Pilar.
Yes, I'd
Would
like to say
go ahead.
something.
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you, thank you. So having been exploring and thinking about all the benefits of having remote work, and especially these things about being able to work where we come from, my concern now, which was a small concern, but even more so now, that many companies are experiencing remote workers as people working from home. And so my concern is really that if that becomes the norm, we're going to have a section of society that is not able to access remote work because they don't have the facilities to work at home. So I wanted to ask the panels or anyone's thoughts about, one, whether this is something you've seen already, two, if this is something that you've been thinking about, how to address it when it happens, or actually maybe we're not there yet.
I have this discussion with white collar and blue collar, because blue collar workers now say, okay, we haven't a chance to work remotely during Corona, so we have a higher risk to get Corona. And I think this is something we should discuss, or our government should discuss when they get the law. Because when you're blue worker, you can't work remotely. It's only for the knowledge worker. For when you work with knowledge or with your brain, then you can work remotely. But we have a lot of jobs that where people have to be on site to do the job, to do the work.
Yeah.
So there must be balance. So they should also benefit from this law. And that's really difficult, because it's a social question. Really social
and I think it's a kind of even a bigger question. So I think Germany is a very interesting test case, because this is exactly what Pilar said. We don't have even a good internet connection to everybody to work from home. Also, when you would be able to work from home. So on TV, there was a documentary of two women who are working in the estate industry, and they are makler, so the estate agent, and they had to drive to the parking lot of the supermarket to get a good internet connection, because they didn't have that at home. So that's one aspect. Another aspect, when it comes back to what Nacho also said, is we have to see the complete. So there are a few things in Germany which are very big: automotive industry, and also the aerospace industry and building airplanes. The other one is factories. So we are quite far away from having factories or automated that the employee could actually run the factories remote from home. So they do need to go back home. The two other industries are also now a little bit kind of affected from remote coming to place, because there will be less planes needed, there will be less cars needed, there will be less amount of movement around. So these industries, they are employing a lot of people in Germany. And if those jobs are falling away, because we started remotely work when it's possible, we have to think about the changes. Okay, what kind of other businesses can we build to actually get jobs for everybody? And this is what is happening already in the building industry. So they said, okay, now the suggestion is around 2 days a week, everybody should be able to work from home. That means 20% of the buildings are going to be empty. So you have to find a new way of filling them in. And this is something which goes again back to Pilar. And this is something why I have been thinking lately a lot. So the co-working spaces are already to the direction of allowing remote people to actually have the communities, have the face-to-face connection to people closer to their home space. But they are not really feeling the opportunity of being very exciting. So some of them have very colorful furniture, but if you see the same colorful furniture every day, it starts getting boring after some time. So this kind of employee experience centers, as the co-working spaces could actually be in the best possible cases, this is something where we could solve part of these problems, because they have the facilities, they have the internet connection, and they have also the social connection, which is very important part. We should not forget the mental health of people working remotely and other aspects. So it's a big question, and I guess in few hours today we can't even give an answer. But it's very interesting to hear the experiences from other countries, because the industries where people are working, how they are working, they are also very different in the among now who we are here today. So it's very interesting to hear in the UK, Spain, and other countries.
Very interesting. One thing I wanted to ask, who is watching the time, and are we okay on the time? Because I find the discussion extremely interesting. So Nadine is our timekeeper, and you.
I would like to take over because I've got a chat, I've got a question, so that we have more straightforward. Would like Osman has a. Would you wanted to jump in?
Just a final remark without expanding that too much, which you know, what was we were looking on the very positive aspect because all of us are proponents of remote work. I hope in the second panel we can or should discuss also on the challenges, not only the external conditions like, you know, space, but also the mental and psychological difficulties for at least some of people who are maybe not really used to that type of work, and how startups and corporates and employees can tackle these challenges, and what can be done in order to, you know, make people feel more involved and not isolated in their remote work.
Okay. Thank you very much for the first panel. Was great. It's a short amount of time. I know. I think we can discuss or could discuss the whole evening or 3 days, the whole weekend. But thank you very much. I would like to take just one question from the chat. From the chat, Chris asked, "It's with the new law. Will the new law only prioritize salaried worker?" I think it will. No freelancers or Freiberufler, because as a Freiberufler freelancer in Germany, from law, you have your own company. So and all the laws we have on work are more for salaried employees. But I'm not a law expert. Maybe Osman, you are the lawyer. You need the next time we invite our chancellor, our working minister, because maybe he can give the answers the next time. I would like to give all participants the chance to ask a question to the panelists. Maybe Nacho, can you have you the time to ask?
I'm really enjoying the conversations. I'm just worried that, you know, people will have to go afterwards, and we won't be able to cover at least all the panels, and we have plenty of time afterwards to keep discussing and keep solving the world. So let's move on.
Okay, let's move on. Thank you very much for you contributing to the first panel. Please stay. You can also jump into the second panel if you would like to move forward the discussion. On the second panel, it's getting more international now. We have Gonzalo Hall. Hi, Gonzalo. And Chase Warrington. Here, okay. Matthew Lloyd. Reese Black. And Natalia and I jump in for when we're coming to a German question or question regarding Germany. Yeah, thank you very much for being here. Maybe Osman, to ask you a question about challenges. What are the main challenges regarding remote work you see now and in the future? Maybe Matt, you can jump in if you like. Please start with the introduction of yourself.
Matthew Lloyd, many hats for a startup in the virtual office space called Worker. I think you touched on a lot of good points in the previous discussion, and sort of some of those challenges are really concerned throughout the world, not just sort of within Germany. And one of those is definitely sort of the legalities and the compliance constraints that big companies face. It's interesting, and I like to use the term the big oil tanker organizations. I'm interested to see how they're going to incorporate remote into their businesses, and how long that will take, to be honest. And to be honest, I'd love to hear people's thoughts on that, because quite frankly, I don't know.
Okay. Rhys would like to jump in.
Yeah, sure.
The challenges, and with the first introspection yourself.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name's Rhys. I run a consultancy called Delocate, where we help companies operate better as remote organizations. In terms of challenges, there's lots. I think that they fall in a couple of different camps. One is, I think a lot of it stems from, I guess, still maybe as advocates, or as people that are, as you say, quite advanced in a lot of this. We kind of take it for granted a little bit. We probably don't really realize how, I guess, new this is to a lot of people, and people are much earlier on their journey. And I think that leads to the fact that there's still quite a superficial understanding of remote work out there. I tend to not really work in the big corporate companies, the oil tankers, but I'm sure even probably more so at that level, at the sort of SME level that I work at, there's still a lot of education. There's a lot of companies out there that, especially with what's going on and the switch that we've made right now, have said, oh yeah, I'm using instant messenger, whatever that may be, and I'm using a video call app. We're working remotely, which is a very narrow band of view. It's a step in the right direction, but it's an extremely small step in the right direction. And I think, that obviously has implications on operations, like how productive you are being, and I can rant about that for a very long time, but I'm sure we'll get into it. But for what Osman mentioned as well, like that does have really material impacts on employee well-being. If that is kind of your remit of remote working, then it's very easy for people to start getting isolated. It's very easy for people to start becoming not unproductive because they don't like their company or whatever. They just start to feel like, okay, I don't know what's going on here. My motivation is totally gone. I have no perspective on what's going on. I can send a WhatsApp to a couple of people and get a one-word answer, but really that doesn't give me the visibility, right? Most companies right now are basically just recreating or trying to, let's say, recreate the office in the digital realm right now. You can certainly do better than that, and actually a lot of companies are even struggling to do that.
Yeah, I see this when the lockdown started, they just focused on introducing the tools, but they just introduce the tools, or then we try Microsoft Teams, or we try Zoom, but first they don't focus on performance and production and productivity, and now they start to think about increasing performance. But I see you can also, most companies introduce the tools in the wrong way. They just introduce the tools and don't support the employees. And you should first map your processes and identify and analyze where is the problem in your workflows, and then set up a digital workflows and then implement the tools that can help you to improve the workflows. But you just introduce some tools and then you say, okay, it's intuitive. Everybody can work with the tools, and it's not really, then you have a lack of usage. And that's what I see in companies. It's a wrong tool adaptation process.
What I think, oh, sorry.
Yeah. Well, Matt, you have a tool, so maybe
go ahead.
No, it's just a conversation we've had internally and with quite a few of our customers about how hybrid will work within organizations once sort of X percentage of the staff, if they say you can go remote, you get parents with kids who are like, bugger this, I'm going back to the office. I've had enough of being at home. They've had that experience where they've had the work from home experience, but not the remote work experience where they couldn't pop down to the cafe and have a coffee whilst working. They've had to stay indoors. So there's that mixed sort of emotion and feeling towards remote work. And we're sort of having those discussions at the moment of how a remote first culture can be introduced into some of these larger organizations when they're in that hybrid model, I was talking from experience. I was a guinea pig for an organization where we had to create a remote first culture. And it took us 6 months to get there, but we got there. And I just wonder, sort of with yourself and Nadine, and I know Gonzalo as well, and Pilar, you work with a lot of companies in this way. So it'd be interesting, and Brita as well, I'm sure, to find out what their journey looks like and how those experiments go in finding that right blend of sort of culture, remote first, hybrid within these larger organizations to get everybody to enjoy sort of both in office and remote.
Okay, thanks.
So it's a very, very good and very important topic that you guys are touching here, and on tools and on a correct application of great tools. And I want to thank you, Ross, for bringing up this point of the feeling of being connected, of a feeling of knowing what's going on, because it's so important. And I think this will be in like larger companies, even the smaller companies, they're saying this will be that trigger when people realize that they do want to have better remote processes because they feel alienated. They don't know what's going on.
Thank you.
Hopefully.
Gonzalo, you raised the hand.
I raised my hand, yes. Because I think that we are right now, after this experience, we are
would
talking...
you like to introduce yourself? Sorry.
Oh, yes. I'm Gonzalo, founder of Remote Work Movement, a podcast. I'm a consultant. I have conferences. I do everything related to remote work. I sleep remote work. I live remote work. God knows what I do with remote work. So I have a strong opinion because I have a big issue with what's happening right now, where when I spoke with more than 200 HR managers in the last 3 weeks, asking how is remote work happening with you? Are we enjoying it? What is the future? And they all answered me, yes, this is amazing. We want to do this in the future. And I was thinking, what are they talking about? They have no idea. So there are 3 types of remote work. No, and I can explain why. Because we are all saying remote work because we are used to say remote work. That's the expression we grew up into this world saying because it means something to us. Right now, I strongly believe we should stop saying remote work. It doesn't make sense anymore. And I can explain you why. There is 3 types of remote work, and they all are totally different. We have telecommuting, if you want, where you have home office, your schedule is the same, nothing changes. You close the meeting room, you open Zoom. That's the only change you actually do, and people work from home. Nothing changes in the organization. That's where 99% of the companies are right now, and they are saying they are loving it. That's the same thing as being in the office without the commuting, right? There is the flexible work where you have the hybrid companies where you have more flexibility, and we have the distributed companies like Doist, where you have the people actually distributed, more asynchronous work. So when we say remote work, we are saying all these 3 different types of work that they don't combine very well. So I do think that we need to change a little bit our vocabulary, and we need to make an evolution here to make sure that the companies and we are speaking the same language when we speak about remote work. Because for me, remote work is not telecommuting, is not having the same exactly the same structure as we have in the office, but being at home with Zoom calls and with Slack. And now we are all working remotely, and this is amazing, but we still have to live in the cities. We still have to live close to the office because sometimes we have to go there. So I strongly suggest that we need to change our vocabulary to make it work again, and also to make the companies understand this is not the golden goose that we were talking about when we spoke about remote work before COVID. It's something else. It's distributed, right?
That's
and we really need to make that point.
One sentence on that. When I speak with managers or sell my services and you say remote work, they say, oh no, we don't need it. You have to be, I always say, okay, improving digital collaboration. And they say, okay, digital collaboration, we need it because we would like to digitize our workflows. And then you focus on digital collaboration, and then you get the issues of being distributed, working in distributed teams and distributed operations. And then I think we come in from the back door to this whole issue.
Yes, imagine, if you guys can answer me this question, can telecommuting change the world? My answer is no. It's the same thing as working in the office, but we are working from home. Exactly the same. Can flexible work change the world? Maybe. can distribute work change the world? Yes, I can work from here where I have a pool next to me. I have a small modem. I'm connected with you with my small modem, and I'm working where I barely have internet with Wi-Fi. And this changes everything. I can work anywhere. With telecommuting, I cannot really work anywhere, and that's totally different.
Okay, thank you, Gonzalo. To move on, I would like to introduce Chase. Hello, Chase. Nice to have you here. What's your
thank you.
about the whole challenges now and in the future? And first, introduce yourself with 2 or 3 sentences.
Sure. Yeah. Chase Warrington. I am with Doist. We're like Marcus mentioned with Buffer, a fully distributed team. We've got 75 people in 30 something different countries and no central offices. So I'm from the US, but living here as Nacho's neighbor in Valencia, Spain. And yeah, happy to be here. So I would just echo a lot of the sentiments that I would have said very similar to what Reese mentioned a few minutes ago, and some of what Gonzalo is saying there, that I can imagine that those of you that are in remote work consultancies right now have endless opportunities, because the more I talk to fully remote teams that are now fully remote or trying it for the first time, being forced into it, I realize just how much we sort of do take some of the workflows, the tools we use, the concepts that we use, the culture that we built around remote work, and just applied it to our everyday life. And it's become like a second language to us, the way we do things. And it is amazing to see some of these teams having to go through this quick paradigm shift instantaneously and give remote work a shot. So I find it really interesting when we talk to teams that are trying this, that they really need help with some of the fundamentals. And Nadine, you mentioned something a few minutes ago about, the getting into the management consulting and talking to them about like the ways that you can incorporate some of these concepts that fully remote teams have, and the positive effects it can have. But the negative effects early on that some of them experience are quite extreme too. The loneliness, the lack of culture. Some teams go straight to this like surveillance state mindset where they want to track every single thing that their now remote workers are doing. And so there are certainly challenges. And like Gonzalo said, I think distributed work has so much potential to change the world. But the way teams are having to do it right now in such a quick, hasty way could have some negative repercussions about the way people think about remote work and what they think is the right way to do it. I've talked with someone recently who they went from a full office location culture to everybody working remote. They got handed Microsoft Teams and were told to go play, and that was it. They had no coaching on how to do this, and it was a nightmare. So I think like you guys that are in this business of helping those teams have so much potential, because to really make a big difference for them, because they can sort of see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Okay, great. Before we move forward, we have another poll. I would like to show the results, and home office versus co-working space versus office. So nobody's working at the office at the moment, or usually. And yeah, it's 50-50 co-working or working from home.
Well, it's also, it's about us, right? So co-working right now, or what was the question? Home office versus co-working, or
it was meant to be a selection. So what do you prefer? I hope everybody understood it right.
Yeah, but it's about ourselves, right? And most of us are either like remote workers or remote workers. So
yeah, but it's interesting because the latest numbers used to show that there was more home office than actually co-working. I think I remember from the latest state of work that I think Buffer did, it was like 20% co-working. So sorry, yeah, 20% co-working. Now here is almost 50%. So I'm excited to read that because I manage a co-working space.
you market research, that show.
I think co-working
actually,
spaces. Sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay.
I have a point, and it's connected to the previous panel. as more and more companies, and I was discussing this today with the company, allow remote work. As you guys mentioned before in the panel, a lot of people are not ready to home office. They don't want to home office, and they can't home office because their house is not big enough, or they don't have the internet, they don't have the space, or they have people around. So I do think that co-working is going to play a big role in the near future as more and more companies go remote.
Yeah,
that's what I wanted to say, that the market of maybe, like even from the corporates of creating smaller locations at small hubs, like not a managed office, but just some place that people can work, that would also be something on the rise. And like having a more comfortable chair.
Yeah.
Oh, but just I mean, there are a lot of values. I mean, just the concept of isolation that we all know about, the concept that maybe you don't have the right chair or you don't have the right connectivity. There's going to be more co-working spaces in rural areas where people, would like to move on and gather and have a work atmosphere, and they go back to their villa or wherever they live, and that's going to make a huge difference.
Yeah, I need a balance. I hope the co-working space in Frankfurt will reopen soon, because I love it to go to the different co-working spaces and to meet new people. So, but
I cannot wait to go back to my co-working. Like
I'm back in my co-working.
I worked at home for 7 years, like worked remotely, but worked from home or coffee shops or whatever, and then started going to a co-working a couple of years ago, and now I can't go back. So I'm forced to go back now, but I can't wait to be back to my co-working.
I absolutely hated to work from home before this. I hated, I suffered. In the first month, I was suffering. I couldn't focus. Nothing worked for me. I love the social aspect about co-working spaces, especially as a digital nomad. Being in the same place for 6 months and working from home is like sacrifice to the alternate level. It's like, no, please kill me.
I'm going to play devil's advocate on that one. I love working from home. I really, really do. But I love both. I love both.
Me too, yeah.
For me, it's a weird thing. Maybe I'm super picky or something, but I really, really love designing the space that I work in. I can even give you a really simple example. I'm really tall. I'm 2 meters tall. Okay. Normal desks and other things like this, they don't fit me. I have back problems also because I'm tall. The chairs are not correct for me in co-working spaces. Co-working spaces to me so far are usually not customizable enough. They're usually not flexible enough and have high quality chairs and high quality desks and things like that. I do go to a co-working space as well, but I have to say I love working from home too, because I can do exactly what I want.
Great.
My biggest doubt on co-working spaces is basically that those co-working spaces who doesn't have a quiet space, because if I do my work, I need to focus, and that is coming in, chit-chatting, I absolute disregard of others who really are focused on work. Some co-working spaces have, for example, a bounce, also they have a very quiet area. If you are there, nobody talks, and there is another working area. And if it's a commingled co-working space, that is just a no-go.
The other, obviously, situation that is particular and peculiar to the current COVID situation is obviously that since everyone is working from home, you have your spouse and you have your children at home, right? So it's
you
additional.
Are single.
Or you're single. It does make it
single,
better.
Okay, you only have the kids and your spouse, but the singles are very isolated and have discussions until Dick Slop last week.
Yes,
3 hours
so it's
yeah.
So there are different challenges.
People at home, different challenges.
Right.
But I would like to move on for the whole panelists, because we are now a lot of remote advocates helping people or helping companies working remotely. How we can help, or what you would do now or in this corona situation. I just wrote a case study for the Harvard Business Manager focusing on that. It was like a company seeking new opportunities and to motivate the staff. Right now they are very stressed in the working situation, or don't use the opportunities and go back to the normal situation. So now we are on a breaking point, and I think our help is needed right now for the companies. And yeah, how can you help? Matthew, how would you help now from breaking point, or how can you help as remote advocate? Are you here?
Yeah, I'm still here. No, I was just thinking, I think they just need to take it one step at a time, really. They've got to take an iterative approach to it and speak to sort of consultants just as yourself and Gonzalo and really sort of learn from your experience.
Okay.
I've got something to add to that. So,
go ahead.
Thank you. Sorry, Chase. I'll make a shameless plug and then I'll give something of value at the same time. I run a community, a Slack community of founders of remote companies. It's a great place that people can come and they can learn from each other and ask questions and be vulnerable. Even some people in this group are in it, Chase is in it. But actually the vulnerability thing, I think is just one of the most important parts right now. There's like an interesting thing that goes on, I guess, when you're making this sort of change, and that you kind of need to get remote work. There's definitely like this, I don't know, mindset change that needs to happen, and it's not an easy one to make. And I think for companies that are making this change right now, and it's a big change in their professional lives, and there's obviously a lot going on at home for people too. I think that really this is an opportunity for leaders in companies to actually, I guess, be vulnerable, be a bit more open and be like, look, guys, I'm struggling with these sorts of things going on right now. I guess you are too. How about we actually open this dialogue and not have this like professional barrier that's going on, because it's not helping anybody. If you bring those down and realize that everybody's having a tough time in a remote company and open that up, then things move much better.
Okay, great. Would you like to share the link to your community in the chat, or? Okay,
Artis, I think you're muted. I see you saying something, but I could not hear you.
Yeah, could you hear me now?
Yes.
I wanted to follow up, as Liz said, just we are kind of today more of this conversation focusing about the physical possibilities, remote work, how to set up, what's the challenge. So, and Pirita gave some examples which are not possible, like factory work. I think there is a second, at least from my side, I do legal work and mostly for large companies like for Deloitte contracts and so on. Deloitte actually has been really good for me, allowing remote work. But the corporate attitude change, and the Twitter example is good. Probably some bigger companies gonna follow. For me, as a life example, was last year I was working for a large US company in Toronto, Canada. I can go in t-shirt and in shorts to their corporate office where all are in suits, but it was a file concerning high-level Austrian politics, some legal reviews I had to do. And they really needed me. And then I went to Las Palmas, to Nomad City in November, and there was work which needs to be done, and Canadian operations managers approved it. And they are high-end technological companies, e-discoveries. They can grant me remote access always in 5 minutes, IT department. There is no technical issues. Absolutely everybody in Canada approved. Went to New York, human resources has to make final check mark that IT department can turn me on. No, we're not gonna do that. That is too confidential. That is too sensitive materials. And quite frankly, one thing that needs to be a little bit changed, I think that what the digital nomads and the image, I can imagine that some human resources department sits in New York and then they think whether to approve, click and Google and see some, teenagers sitting in Thailand with coconuts, and 100 people in background preparing for full moon party, that I think, what the hell, we're not gonna let to work remotely with such a break of confidentiality and everything. And now what's happened in this March, this whole lockdown, the same companies, they really needed to work done. Oh, now they approved. Now I can work from home, The more is the attitude, this kind of this corporate and legal profession generally, it's a little bit stagnatic. And You see lawyers in courthouse which have a paper calendars. I think, but that's the important fact, and what I feel connecting not so much this technological challenge, but this general attitude that is possible and that is nothing bad can happen, you know.
Okay, thanks. Chase, you wanted to say or jump in?
One thing I was gonna say is that I think that a lot of people here probably will echo the sentiment that like there's been a lot of people that just came out of nowhere as like remote work experts all of a sudden and throwing around some pretty bad advice. And I think one thing we can do as people that are advocates of this and have been doing it for a long time is sort of centralizing that tone and finding ways to speak together and to consolidate some of that knowledge. So I think things like this are great, and more of this could just, I think, make that statement even stronger and kind of speak over some of the noise and the chatter that's out there that's not so useful, and it's probably gonna set bad trends for others. So my thing that I would say we could do would be to consolidate that voice and use the kind of strength in numbers as much as possible.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
I can just follow up with Chase as well, because I was going to say more or less the same thing. I think we are connected somehow, because one thing I'm doing quite often right now, and sometimes I see my calendar and I get scared of my own what I'm doing right now, and it's exactly come to the public space and speak. I see Nacho in a lot of events. I see a lot of people here just speaking more and more and coming up. The more we speak up, the more we come to the events, the more we organize events. I'm trying to organize also as many events as possible where I am the curator of the speakers, like you guys did brilliantly here. I think we have that power. The community is quite small, surprisingly. So we know each other more or less quite well. So when we create events, we are helping educating people. When we create a course, we are helping educating people, and it's all about education. One thing I'm noticing is we are all targeting B2B, and I see very little education for individuals. I see very little conferences for individuals on how to start working remotely, how to work remotely properly. And I would like to see also more people focusing on the B2C, on the people that are actually working remotely and not only in the companies. I think that will be also very useful so people don't think that remote work is being in Thailand sipping coconuts.
Okay, I come up as a timekeeper now. Nacho? You look fine. Okay.
I'm enjoying the conversation. I forgot to watch the clock.
Okay, great. Maybe I would like to introduce all the panelists also from the first panel to say two or three sentences to sum it up, or what you would like to, what's now in your head, or what you would like to share with all participants, and to finish the discussion and move on to the networking session.
I think maybe just one last thought, similar to what others already said, but what's in my head is a lot the how of remote work, because the what that we all need to is kind of becoming obsolete right now. We all learn that we need to do it, but the how, also as Gonzalo said, is still, I think, especially in very distributed teams, right? It's maybe easier for people that are in the same country or in the same city, but if teams get distributed, across various time zones, then it becomes harder. So I think there's a lot in the how that we can still learn from each other, but also share with all the others that are starting to work remotely. So yeah, that's, I think, what becomes more and more important now.
Okay, thanks.
I've got something in my head that's been in my head from a lot of conversations. The thing, the drum that I've been beating a lot recently is really boring, but really important in remote teams is documentation. Just unbelievably important. And the thing is that documentation's had such a bad rap because of the history of in-house teams. Documentation went somewhere and was never ever read ever again. And I mean, it shouldn't be that way in in-house companies, but I guess the temptation is just so strong to tap someone on the shoulder to ask how to do something, that it became that way. And with the way communication has gone these days, right, we went very, very quickly from only being able to talk to someone face to face to being able to send like 4 million Slack messages in one day, or Twist messages. And that has just made it completely impossible for us to work in that way now. All knowledge for a company needs to be productized. It needs to be turned into documentation. If we ever want to build and get to this, like, you know, nirvana of distributed companies that Gonzalo's talking about, where we're talking about being able to autonomously work, time zones, add that in, and it becomes even more difficult. That's the drum that I'm banging right now.
Okay, thanks. Next. Any ideas, Rita?
I guess I can jump in. It's a topic that has been raised a few times, and it's the psychological and the mental part. And for us who have been working in different versions of this remote for a long time, we have already adapted. But the companies who are moving now into the different versions of remote, they are having it very hard because they are really. Firstly, they are concentrating on the infrastructure that has to be there. And secondly, they are then building the processes, but the leadership is not really changing. So what people are having there is really difficulties. And I think one aspect what we should do here is share the experiences, especially from these kind of communities like remote community, which has a lot of experiences, and say, okay, there is a learning curve, one needs to try different things, and there are things to worry. I think the one interesting sharing was recently PictoChart. That's an originally Filipinian company, but they have employees all over the all continents, and they recently decided to go fully remote. And they said one of the learnings what they have this hybrid model was that there were still kind of two hierarchies of people. The people in the head office were somehow like in the traditional corporations, the headquarter people who actually drive the decisions and drive the products and so on. And the people who were working remotely, they were not just let out of the information. That was the lack of the communication and lack of the documentation, but they were also kind of put into the second position as a person within the company. So this company now during the corona had actually found, okay, it's better we go fully remote. So there will be no more headquarter or one single place. And these are the small messages from a lot of different experiences we should share, because the companies who are now making the movement, they don't have any idea what to expect. So my kind of learning is try to learn from the mistakes from others. So we don't have to all repeat the same mistakes. If somebody has already experiences, we should share these experiences. It makes us life for everybody much easier.
Yeah, no, I think it's you can't change a company overnight. So it was a special situation in this corona, but you know, on the breaking point, people would like to go back to the office because it's too much change for them, and we should move it, being a bit down to earth and say, okay, what we can have now in a roadmap with small steps, so that it's not too much change in one time for the people, so that they can keep up with the change and the different working situation. And that's what I see. We can help more to set up a good roadmap, what they can do in smaller steps to to motivate the employees as well.
I think Daphne was raising a hand. You're muted, so just you know. Thanks.
Yes, I was just not wanting to be rude, just buying. Hi, I am Daphne. So I just had a comment about how we can help companies that are going remote at the moment. And what I see is currently challenging for when I'm talking with people responsible of people operation or just enabling all these remote work program and making it available, is what they see is there is it's not necessarily because you have the tools, the documentation, and people really know how they do their work, but if the setup itself is made where in the team I'm talking about, there are managers with different teams, and then the managers basically are deciding how they are enabling remote work or not. And many feel that they would have lack of control. They won't be able to know what people are doing. They don't like the fact that they're remote because they are lacking control. There is a lot of blockage there. And I say to these people that there's a big part of it that for it to be successful, it needs to be done culturally. It needs to be, there's work to be done culturally on setting right expectations, and so that managers also are working with a team and having to measure the performance of their team, know how to measure that performance, because many of them don't necessarily know how to measure it and just think that if they're in the office, they are working. And it's not just about trust or about having the right tool and documentation, but I think they need also the tools to be able to make their team succeed. And we cannot just expect like, okay, we trust our employee, they do their work. And also for the remote workers themselves to do great work, they need to know what is great work and have a good feedback loop. And I think this is something that sometimes we don't talk enough, and actually makes a very big difference when you are in a team that has this setup and a system set up for that. And yeah, that's the only comment I have to say is I think this is probably how we could help remote companies in that way, as you guys are a consultant also in this.
Exactly. That's also my experience that I have been making, and it's also something that people are asking me a lot about. So it's that we help people to find out the things that they want to measure, because also the remote employees, as you were saying, Daphne, the great ones, they want their work to be seen, and we would like to empower, to help companies to make that explicit, like define what you want to measure, make it measurable, and make it measurable without like spending half a day on some report. So it's available on the dashboard. Very important, and that's also I'm being asked a lot. Yeah.
Okay, just to organization. Not sure you came up with a poll if we should move to the networking groups or just have the discussion.
It seems like the majority wanted to keep talking, which is totally fine. I'm loving the conversation. So, but I would love the ones who haven't participated yet to speak up if they feel comfortable doing it, so that we hear from all of you. So if I don't know, here's Rachel, Javi, que está por ahí, also Gilad, Ross, anyone wanted to, Lilia, participate and jump in so that we hear from you too. Don't be shy.
Sure. Hi, I'm Rachel. I lead the people team at DevX, which is a media platform. I also am an organizational and leadership coach, which I do on the side. So something that's been really interesting for me is I come from an organization that's small. It's about 120 people. We have always had the hybrid model. We have 3 offices, about 20% of the team's fully remote, but then those that work in offices still have like flexibility to work from home pretty freely. What's been really interesting is there's a lot of inherent challenges with the hybrid model. I'm not a big believer in it. I think it's very challenging to develop it out and make it function effectively. I'm kind of like all in the office or all remote, leaning towards the remote side. What I've seen since we've moved to fully remote from this hybrid model is we have founders that started this company when they were in their 20s. They're now in their 40s. And this has really been the only company they've been a part of. So there's a lot of like really set behaviors. And I don't know if others have experienced this. And so there's a lot of talk about innovation and agile. And that's translated to let's have as little of documentation and processes as possible, which I think we can all agree that's not an effective way to operate at an organizational level. So long story short, knowing that, I'd be curious, what's your take on how do you start to introduce more? I mean, we've been working towards this for like the last couple of years, but what are some things that can help towards a mentality shift that really invites a positive thought around like, hey, documentation, right? Reese, like you said, documentation is not a bad thing when it's done the right way. So I'd be curious if anyone else has thoughts around this. Like, how do you bring in processes and documentation in a way that like helps people see it as a good thing versus as something that makes you not agile?
I can comment on this if I can compare to this one company called Elastic. Don't know if you know, it's based in, I think their headquarters in San Francisco or like in Mountain View. They're a hybrid company with, I don't know how many employees now, maybe over 1,500 employees now. And they are in hybrid, and they are managing their company as a remote first. So they are very, the all culture is called remote and people first. And every process or every way of working, even if you're in the office, should be thinking that you could be remote. So even if you're contacting your somebody next to you, you should be going through the communication channel as usually asynchronous. So I think this is usually what I see is effective. I am also working at the moment in a hybrid company, so it's a first for me, and I really see the kind of challenges that you can see yourself, which I used to be full remote with companies that are completely remote, and then switching to that hybrid is definitely very challenging, but you can see they're wanting to make it work, but it's there's a lot of groundwork to be done on culturally to make it happen, and there's choices to be done, I guess, as the leadership team and people driving the company on how, the way we work in the company that is accepted and that people are all on the same level in a way, if it makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think for me, the hardest thing has really been, and I agree with the remote first, and that's something we've slowly been working towards, but it's how do you help shift a mentality that's sit in maybe a more traditional workplace? I think that's a really hard problem to solve for.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll check out Elastic. Thanks for sharing.
I think one very important thing, just one tip, is that you should try to put everyone at the same level. This is super difficult when people are in the office, but little things like everyone being in their computer while they are doing meetings instead of a team in the meeting room and the others remote. Just these little things can help level the field and make it easier than to have the same access to information. I know documentation is really boring for most people, but when you build these systems, when you finish a meeting, you should document it, build the action so everyone is at the same page. And it's just those little things like everyone being at the computer in the meetings that will help you change slowly to a more leveled organization.
I think you need the right balance between also asynchronous work is nice to be the most productive, but you also need a synchronous work with your team, because if you only asynchronous work, you have a lot of cost of documentation and of coordination, and we haven't spoken about costs in the remote environment, because it's totally different than in the office space. And we have to balance out costs. When we do it with the wrong framework, we had a lot of huge costs of coordination, documentation, communication in the team. And we also have to speak about that, balancing out the whole workflow costs. And we need a right balance between asynchronous and synchronous, and be sure and set expectation, okay, where can we work asynchronously to be most productive, and where we should meet to share ideas, to discuss problems, to find solutions together in a team, and document together these solutions in a team. And when you do documentation for your asynchronous work, I did a lot of knowledge management projects in the past, 15 years ago, for huge companies. And there was also always a question about how to document anything, any knowledge you have. And it's about asking the right question and provide the right templates. I mean, I always say, okay, if you have a white paper, just write down what you know. Would be very hard for each of us. But when you say, okay, I've got the paper prepared as a template for your work, for your project, just fill in the gap. Then it's very easy to document your work and your solutions you have. And it's also, we set up some templates as best practices we set out the templates, we just analyze it, what are the categories in this project, what would you like to document, what are the right questions here, and they just have to fill in, and then it was very easy to document your work. Just providing templates, that's what we did in the knowledge management project, and it worked very well.
Can I want to add something to that, if that's
Yeah.
okay. Rachel, what you said is really funny, right? Because it's almost like, I guess, corporate leaders have just wrapped their head around this buzzword of lean, and then all of a sudden you've got remote coming in, and they're like, wait, should I be lean or remote? Like, and it's almost like whiplash. The thing that I always find a little bit strange is, like, I don't think documentation is really this huge time-consuming thing that needs to be perfect. It could be made perfect down the line, but I feel like people overthink it big time, as if they need to write this beautiful piece of prose that explains everything. Half the time I tell my clients, when you have finished some piece of work, some project or something, film a 2-minute video with Loom explaining what you've done, shove it in a document, and then transcribe it later. Transcribe it and then do what you want down the line. Like, just get it out your head and get it on the paper or in video or on audio.
Yeah, that's the point. Don't overthink your documentation processes.
I think Charles has a point.
It's just about understanding the point. So, yeah.
Yeah, you are on the same line. Make it as easy as possible for everyone who needs to document. Like, give them the food already made. Just fill the gaps, please. Thank you.
Yeah. I think Charles has a point because his hand is up since some time now. So.
Thanks. We're up, everybody. Here from Klaxoon. Congrats to all the organizers again today, and to everybody I know in here. What's up? Something that we didn't really invoke that much today, and we've talked about a lot of cool stuff. We talk often. There's a very cited research piece from Nick Bloom from Stanford that says that remote workers, and this is before COVID, remote workers are 13% more productive when they do so. But if you take a closer look at the study, 9% of that productivity boost is because they work more. And everything that we've seen these last couple of weeks, and I'm taking myself as an example because I work 80% remotely already before this, but I kind of feel I'm finishing a lot later than I did before. I'm starting earlier. People are putting a whole bunch of meetings in my calendar that I didn't have before. They're sending me all these messages. So I know it's a catch-22. Some people have been less productive because they've tried to recreate their office in their home office, and that clearly doesn't work. But I think a lot of people, and some of the best to analyze this was Microsoft researchers engineers. And Microsoft engineers were starting earlier, skipping lunch, and finishing later very consistently. So clearly, we as advocates love to talk about remote work as a productivity boost, but I think we might be getting in some business leaders' heads that this is great because everyone's going to be working more. How do we manage this to make sure that we do have clear cutoff points? And I think maybe I saw the poll on the government before. France in the past had started a law that was le droit de déconnexion, which is the right to unplug. How do we start this dialogue as advocates to make sure that we do unplug as well and teach others how to do that? Because it's not the easiest thing to do. Thanks.
Merci.
There is actually in Germany, I hope these two comes together. So there is currently already ongoing discussions and legislation that every worker in Germany should actually go back to this, I don't know how they are called, this measuring time for work. I don't know how it's done then for all kind of workers, but this together with the remote working, I think these two should actually come back, because Germany has still, generally speaking, quite healthy working hours. So it would be very good if Germany could take a little bit lead on showing this can be somehow handled. By saying so, there are people like me, I don't like fixed hours, because if I'm doing creative thing, I'm not creative on 8 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock in the afternoon either. So these kind of things it's not easy, but I think again, collecting experiences, collecting feedback, maybe categorizing a little bit for different type of jobs. So I have a software engineer at home, and he definitely likes to work from 8 to 5 and have the 45-minute lunch break. It works perfectly. And he wouldn't work more hours than that, and definitely not in the evening. So
one sentence to Germany would be a great example, because not only we have the healthy working hours, we also have strong working councils in the companies, and they have to prove anything, everything. If you have a new tool, without the go from the work of the working council, you don't have a chance to introduce any tool or anything regarding your employees and regarding the work. And we have good examples how to set it up with a strong working council. Then we have best practices to for other countries as well. That's what I have in my mind.
I see Natalia here, like.
Thanks. Yes, because I want to say, I think it's a lot less about the rules and about the council and about the tools and about cutoff hours. It's so much more about psychology. It's so much more to help people understand when is my most productive time, when is my kids homeschooling time, and when I do want to get my work, and about the flexibility, the understanding, and about the corporate culture. Giving people the opportunity to work at the times that they are most productive, but telling them how important it is to take breaks, how important it is to be able to unplug in the evening. And I think it's just about, you just have to implement, as a leader, probably the best way to implement that kind of culture for your team, to make sure to check in with the people, to make sure, hey, is your workload okay? Do you think you're managing fine? Are you sure you want to, because especially the people that in this remote situation work alone from home, right? They love their work, like many of us. I'm not sure, maybe any of you can give an example. We do love what we do, and we are willing to do more, but we also want to unplug at some point.
Yeah,
and it's just the personality that's only us that can know when should be enough.
But now in Germany, we have when this law is coming, we have a great chance to set up the right framework from the leadership side. And this framework must be approved from the working councils. And then we have a whole setup we can transfer to other countries. I think we need both.
Yeah. Well, but Germany still has to go quite a way to a good, healthy remote work culture. I mean, councils are fine, and working, like rules and arrangements are fine, but a good, strong, healthy remote working culture is somewhere that I personally think that many of big German companies still have some way for improvement.
Yeah, that we need, but we also have a given infrastructure we have to
right.
Yeah. So
yeah.
I think there's also about education and expectations, meaning most of the people that are now working remotely never did before. So they don't know the rules. They don't know how to stop. It's new for everyone that is now starting. So companies should provide education on maybe use Pomodoro to do breaks or schedule your lunchtime. For example, I have my lunchtime always scheduled, so nobody can schedule meetings during my lunchtime from 1 to 2 p.m. I try to exercise every day at 6:30, so I have to stop working, even though I love what I do. If I keep working, I work 14 hours easily, but I work for myself, so it's the point. And there is also the expectation side, meaning if your boss is answering you an email at 10 p.m., there is a big chance that you will try to answer that email. So the manager are already setting the expectations wrongly, and it should be the other way around. I, as a manager, should say to my employee that answers me to an email at 10 p.m., you should not be working at 10 p.m., this is not your time to work. I disagree with managing hours, but I think there is a line where people should not work. I don't agree that we should measure 8 hours. I hate to work 8 hours. I like to work maybe 6 in the morning, 6 in the afternoon. If I don't want to work, I don't work. Today I was traveling. I don't care about working. This is how I like to do my work. So I think managing 8 hours, it's not the best. I understand that most companies have to do it. I used to work in Germany, so I fully understand the point. It's true. Like there is rules for Germany. I understand it. In Portugal, things are more flexible. So I think it's a lot about expectations, managing expectations, right? And if people go outside those expectations, if people start answering emails at 9, if you see that people are working at 10, send an email. Hey, I saw you were working at 10. It's not really healthy. You should take time for your kids, for your family, for yourself, and try to be a proactive manager in addressing that issue.
Thanks. Ross has a point, so maybe
yeah,
there's just in the chat.
It's a really good conversation. I think the struggle that we have is that we've already talked about quite a lot has to change for this to become at least anywhere near normal. And a lot of the leadership that find it most difficult are from a generation that didn't have the internet when they were born and growing up. And now we have the ability to do our work from wherever we are with the technology that we have. We're still convincing the people in power that this is a new normal, that this can be carried on. So I think this takes a long time to change. I don't think it will happen overnight or within a month or within a year. And it really is about waiting and encouraging new leadership to come up and help make this as more a default as possible, which, you know, will only help with everyone sharing education and sharing and becoming role models. You know, we used to look to our leaders as mentors and those people to follow, but actually I think we need to look at our peers and who's next to us, and those are the role models that we need to accentuate and to rally behind. So yeah, there's a lot of work to do and it's going to take a long time, but what a fantastic endeavor.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Pilar, I think you also had.
Can I can't see everyone, so I've got to speak with you. I was talking to someone yesterday she was a client of mine who's been working online for a large company. So she's been a remote worker for ages. And of course, suddenly her whole team had to work from home remotely. And she said to me, Pilar, these people, they never think about how they work. They never think about how they communicate as a team. They never think about what's the best way of working. And in essence, for me, the beauty of transitioning to remote has always been that we stop and we have those conversations about how we want to work or how we're working as a team. And in this instance, we haven't had a chance to do that. And then going back to the education point, it's also about making space and making it all right for people to stop and check in with themselves and develop self-awareness, and saying that it's okay to go away for a time for a walk, to think. It's okay to have some time of the day which you just take for yourself as an introspection. And I think that's missing, and it's of course been missing. So I think, yeah, plus everything you've said.
Okay.
Thanks.
Nicolas, I don't know how to pronounce your name. It's French or?
I'm American.
American. Oh, sorry.
So
I know it's a French name, so okay.
Well, I've spent the last year in France actually for studies. So I work with Charles at Klaxoon. I'm his intern for marketing, and I just want to say everyone's points have been like really insightful and really helpful. Just to kind of give a perspective of something some people might not have thought about so much. As like a 21-year-old who's kind of in between Generation Y and a millennial, doesn't exactly fit in with those perfectly. But remote work coming in, like this is my first like internship at a larger, medium to large size company, and it's just remote. And as a digital native, it was just a really smooth transition. Absolutely not, like it just feels normal to me. It doesn't really feel all that different. So I'd say there's basically three things that I get out of remote work. The first one is that. The second one is exactly, a couple of people said it earlier about traveling, about the opportunity to, I think that's absolutely right. Most people my age really want to have that opportunity to be able to go where they want to go and work when they want to work. But then the third thing that I think is a little bit less discussed is the financial issue. Because people my age, like we're looking at this big scary world ahead of us, and we see, well, it's really hard to develop a career outside of a city. It's hard to make a lot of money that way. It's almost impossible for us to buy houses, especially in the US. I don't know how it is everywhere. So it's kind of a relief to say, well, if I can work for one of these companies, still be ambitious and yet, not have to take this huge risk of moving into the cities, I think that could open up a whole lot of new people my age who may not have taken those risks before and get a lot more talent that way.
Yeah, thanks. Not only young people want to travel. So. Okay, thanks.
Well, indeed, I'm going to jump in.
Yes.
Because we have 10 minutes to 7 here and 8 for others, and I don't know how many time zones we have today, but it's been an amazing conversation. Just to add to this final point, I remember from the last event in Paris, Alex, the CEO and co-founder of Deal, he was mentioning how he knows no other way of working. He's always worked remotely. He founded and built a company remotely, and he doesn't miss anything because that's what he has grown up with in a way. So obviously there's huge differences between different generations, and I completely agree with the point that I think it was Ross mentioning before. I mean, those who are leading some companies who are probably older generations maybe don't understand what partners or members of their teams like Nicolas might think as the younger generation. So this has been amazing. I'm taking one of the things that I'm taking with me. I loved your comment, Rita, about how what's the situation like in Germany. In every event that I have been, there's been sort of a conclusion in terms of what's the state of remote work in France, and before we were in Israel. And I loved your comment about how impactful remote work is in Germany because of how German industry is currently evolving. I mean, they are building cars and building planes, and all of a sudden maybe they are not needed anymore or not as much. And how that, and being Germany, leading Europe, I mean, how that whole transformation could affect in a decade. So this is certainly a huge transformation in many ways. So there's a lot to think about and to keep talking about. And I'm sure we could be talking for 2 more hours today.
I said we should plan a whole weekend the next time.
We will definitely come back to Germany soon. I mean, as I think there's definitely a lot to be talked about. But
yeah.
First of all, I want to thank Nadine for all the great work, and Natalia for all the great work leading this conversation. I want to thank all of you for all the great comments and questions and chatting that's been happening today. The next one is Spain. We're actually coming back to my home country. That's going to be interesting because there's a lot of things happening in Spain now also around remote work. Our culture was not very connected to it, and all of a sudden everybody's been forced to do it. So we'll see what comes out from there. Thank you again very much to all for joining, all the panelists, everyone else. And I have to leave. I have to take care of my 6-year-old, but I'm gonna leave the room open if you guys want to keep the discussion going. And Nadine and Natalia, you guys are co-hosts, so you can finalize the session whenever you guys finish. But yeah, just wanted to say thank you and hope to see you again soon.
Thank you, Nacho. Stay safe. Bye.
Thank you, Nacho.
Thank you, Nacho.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, Nacho.
Bye-bye.
Well, you don't everyone have to leave right now.
Yeah.
We are still on.
Natalia was just scared. People are just leaving.
If you like to stay, we have some bottle of wine here. And
I was already showing. I brought my beer from home because I am actually privileged enough to be able to access my remote, how do you say it? This co-working space, which I really love. There's no one around, so it's just me and you guys. But yeah, it was a great event. So thank you, Nadine, for organization and for having me around. And thank you guys for your contributions. And I hope it was as valuable for every one of you. I hope you got any points or just, like fun with the rest of us, if not many points. But I'm sure that there were some great things that we just have shared today. So
yeah,
thanks a lot.
Thank you to everyone, to the panelists for taking the time, take part in the panel, for everybody who asked questions and attending this event. Was a lot of fun to organize it, and would like to reorganize another one, maybe in a plant face-to-face in Berlin or in Frankfurt, so we can meet all face-to-face. It would be great. Only people I know from LinkedIn or from social media, and never met you before. So maybe after Corona, we find some time to make a face-to-face event, would be great. And yeah, have a nice evening. Thank you so much. Stay safe. And bye.
Bye bye. Good
Bye.
to see you all.
Thank
Bye.
you.
See you guys.
Bye bye.
Have a great evening.